One of my heroes in the gospel story is the Māori Huhepa Ripahau, who also became known as Matahau. He was from Ngāti Raukawa down on the Kapiti coast, and he'd been taken slave, like so many were, during the land wars, and he'd attended the missionary schools in the far north, and on his release was heading back home to the Kapiti coast when he came across a camp of warriors who'd been at Matamata, and they had sacked the mission station there, Reverend Brown's mission station. And one of the spoils of war, if you like, was a little Gospel of Luke, Tiruka, that had been printed by William Colenso in 1834 in the Māori language. And this had been ripped off the neck of the little girl Tarore, this little 11-year-old girl who'd been caught up in the atrocities that went on. And this chief asked Ripahau, could he read to him what was in this gospel? And as he read to him, this chief became quite emotional because he was hearing for the first time the concept of forgiveness. He was hearing the story of the prodigal son. He was hearing the idea that letting go of utu, which is what these people had been engaged in for generations, would release him from the need to continue down this pathway. And it impacted him so much that he sought out the father of this little girl, Tarore, and asked for his forgiveness. And that very act itself changed the relationships between warring tribes. That was hugely significant. But this fellow Ripahau continued on down towards the Kapiti coast, back to his people in Waikanai and Otaki, and began to gather to himself a group of young Māori, including Tamihana Te Rauparaha, the son of the great warrior chief Te Rauparaha, and his cousin Matini Te Whiwhi. And they became excited about the aspects of this gospel that he'd taken with him, and they wanted to know more. They wanted to learn more. They wanted to learn and to read and write from Ripahau. So they did this, but the tension sort of grew because it was kind of a difficult time on the Kapiti coast. So these guys went off to Kapiti Island and established their own Bible college. And in the end, wanting to know more, having their own missionary, made their way to the Bay of Islands just as Octavius Hadfield was arriving in the country. And there's Octavius Hadfield, another young man aged about 24 years old, a very sickly man who said he wanted to give his life to the gospel because he would rather die among the Māori people than back in England where he'd come from. So Octavius Hadfield becomes another missionary hero of the faith, despised by many, but seen also as many as a great advocate of Māori, the conscience of the nation in some cases. Thought he'd die at 23, lived to 92. Now, Ripahau continues to be a peacemaker, continues to work amongst his own people, preventing possible warfare between the tribes there, but Tamihana Te Rauparaha and Matini Te Whiwhi are legends, really, in terms of what they managed to achieve in this country. Tamihana goes down to the South Island and asks for forgiveness for the atrocities conducted by his father in the lands of Ngaitahu, Waipunamu, and both of these guys get called up during the late 1860s after the Hauhau uprising along the east coast, and are peacemakers there too. They hold fast to the gospel right through to the end. Just amazing.